So everybody, this is the famous Uncle Pete, my wife's Uncle Pete. He just turned 97, right?
Right.
97, still walking around, no wheelchair, no helper, nothing. We just went out and had a lunch together, and I was telling him that a lot of my YouTube subscribers would like to hear his story. When he was younger, because you were born before the Great Depression, so you got to live through that. What was it like? How did people survive? How, what happened after that? Did you have a job? Can you tell us, like, from way back as far as you can remember?
Yeah, I think we were pretty lucky. My father was a barber, so he had pretty steady income because people always needed a haircut. But other than that, we kids had to sell shopping bags, tote newspapers to candy stores on the route, and all sorts of things like that to make money. And my sisters taught other kids or helped them with their homework and made a little extra money that way. So everybody was out to make as much as they could, which was very little. Pennies, really. I mean, if you got $1 a day for a whole day's work, it was a lot. So things have changed an awful lot. And now we're up to what, $17 an hour or something like that.
Yeah, not quite that high. Not yet.
We're getting there.
There are some states now that are trying $15 an hour for minimum wage, but mostly it's not anywhere near that high yet.
Yeah.
But what they're finding is that jobs like at fast food restaurants, McDonald's, Burger King,
Yeah.
people are there are saying we don't want to make $7 or $8 an hour for minimum wage. We want to make 15.
Right.
So the fast food companies can't afford to pay that much. So they're firing a lot of them and then bringing in like computers, so you can just place your order with a computer, and they only have like a skeleton crew in the back that gets the order together. So they're losing jobs, even though the people who stay get to make $15 an hour. So it's kind of a no-win situation, because they have less people working there now than they did before.
Yeah.
Because people want $15 an hour instead of 8 or 9.
Well, when I was born, people worked physically. Men had to be like brute strength, and nowadays you got machines and tools and everything to do all their hard work. Hardly anybody works real hard anymore. I guess a carpenter or a ditch digger is about the hardest a man works nowadays. But in those days, 50% of the American workforce was male, more than 50%, and very few women worked except as nurses and school teachers and things like that. But the rest of them didn't work at all. They stayed at home and tended the kids, and they grew old that way, and they usually died at a pretty early age, like 60. Nowadays, people live to be 80, 85, and don't think anything of it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what the limit is, but I guess we'll probably reach 125 eventually for a pretty standard lifelong aim with everybody. But
what is your secret to being able to move around? Your health looks pretty good. Like, what do you eat?
Yeah, my health has always been good. I've never had anything to drink except an occasional thing like on a party or something like that. And I feel like I've been healthy all my life, which is what's keeping me going now.
You played tennis up until recently.
And I played tennis till last month. So I think 80 years of tennis out of a 97-year-old life
good.
Has done a lot of good for me. Has kept me healthy. And since I never liked anything that was injurious to your health, like drinking or drugs or anything like that, I've been pretty darn healthy, and I've outlived all my siblings too.
And all your tennis partners.
And, right, yeah. And I was, my sister was 96 years younger than I am, 91, and we talk about how we grew old together. And when we started out, we lived in a tenement building, didn't even have a bathtub when we were kids. My mother used to put us in the wash tub in the kitchen and give us a bath there, in the wash tub.
But didn't you tell me, like when the Great Depression happened because of the stock market crash in 1929, that I think I asked you, like, how did people survive then? I thought you told me maybe a lot of people band together inside of a house, and at least a few people would be working.
Yeah, right.
Was that your own family or friends or?
Mostly relatives. Yeah.
So you'd have several of your relatives living in the same house.
Yeah, yeah. We 2 or 3 families in one house. They'd sleep 4 in a bed sometime. Wow. If they were small enough, like kids. And things are pretty rough, and we have it so good now we don't realize how tight things used to be.
And then you say someone used to come by, like a lady would come by and give you like vouchers or something for like food or something like that?
Yeah, yeah.
But you had to be a family, like, I think you told me that, like, if you were a man but you didn't really have family, you were in the soup lines.
Yeah.
But if you lived in a house and had a family, they would come to you and give you vouchers?
Right, yeah.
And what would you do, go to like the grocery store and, and turn them in?
Yeah. Well, there were special places that had just milk and eggs and things like that.
Basic stuff?
Yeah, and bread.
Okay.
And other places you go in the grocery store and pay with your chit at the cashier's counter. But things were pretty rough, and you had to squeeze every penny to make things work out.
Do you remember if people were upset? Because I think in 1935 is when they took the gold away.
Yeah. And
they wouldn't use paper money.
Right.
Was everybody upset about that at that time, or were they okay with it?
Yeah, everybody was upset.
They didn't like it.
They thought that was going to be the end of the USA as far as money goes, as far as business goes. And salaries were very low, and people didn't have too much to live on, and they used to go on relief. So a good part of the population was on relief, and they would get so many chits for things, basic things like bread and eggs and stuff like that. And that's how we existed until things started getting better after about, 1929 was the worst. We went into the Depression.
Yeah.
And we didn't get out of it till about, really the war, World War II brought us out of it. And from then on, things started looking pretty good, but we had our lapses in between. The economy would go down and up and down. But as it turned out, it was very turbulent. Things would never stay the same, and the politics of it was such that you never knew who was going to be the next guy, like Roosevelt.
Yeah.
And for that reason, he served 4 terms, which never happened before. We always had 2-term presidents, but Roosevelt withstood 4 terms, but his 4th term only lasted about 6 months. But things were pretty tough for everybody, working man. But by then, things were starting to get pretty mechanized, and people didn't have that back-breaking labor that they used to have, say, 100 years ago from today.
Yeah.
So it was a big relief to have easy manual labor compared to what used to be. Even with a guy like a carpenter or a ditch digger and all, he would come home after an 8-hour day, sometimes 10-hour day, and be all broken up, and all he could do was flop into bed.
Yeah.
You could barely eat. So things have come a long way, and I believe the economy is probably at its best right now, even though every price is so high.
Mm-hmm.
But prices never go back.
They only go up.
They'll always go up.
And your wages always chase it, right? They're always behind.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd think that they would go back and forth and up and down, but no, it's just a steady rise inside. So pretty soon we'll be looking at a loaf of bread for $5 a loaf of bread.
Yep. When the war started, how did you get involved in that, and why did you join? Like, what made you join the war?
Well, everybody was joining the war, and I felt kind of left out of it.
Like a duty, like it was your duty?
Yeah. Well, I felt like I wanted to beat those Germans.
Yeah, yeah.
I was very warlike myself.
Yeah.
And so I joined the Army, and the Navy, I mean. But instead of sending me overseas or to fight on a submarine or a warship, a battleship, and I stayed in the Naval Air Corps. They did what they wanted with me. I tried to get transferred out of the Air Force a number of times, but they said, no, the Air Force is where you stay. You have to learn how to fix airplane engines. And that's what I did for 3 years during the war, from 42 to 45 until Armistice Day. And then 3 years I learned all about engines. I went to engine school.
Yeah.
And I went to all different places, but all in the U.S. I never went out of the USA. I went to about 6 different places all over the U.S. West Coast, East Coast, South, North.
Didn't you work at a, was it Oak Ridge? Did you tell me you worked at
Oak Ridge, yeah. Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
How'd you get into that?
Well, they sent me there. I didn't know I was going there. But that's where I learned to do, what do you call it? What did they do at Oak Ridge?
Nuclear stuff?
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
How long did you work there?
that was pretty good, very interesting.
I mean, a long time?
Oh yeah.
Did you ever get to see any bombs or anything go off?
No.
You know, anything like that?
No, I never saw a bomb go off. We sent them all over the world.
Yeah.
In the early part of my 3 years, we were sending almost everything over to North Africa, because that's where the war was really going strong, in the Mediterranean. But after a while it turned into Europe, and then we fought in Europe and sent all our stuff overseas by battleship and transport ship over to Europe, England, France, Italy, and even Greece. So, but worked out, everything was, looking back now, it seemed like pretty normal, but at the time it was excruciating. It was so different. I thought, what's the world coming to? Everything's changing so much. Man, how are we going to live through this?
That's what I asked. I look at things now, and you know, like we were saying in the car, the real estate prices are at all-time high again.
Yeah.
People are in debt again at all-time high levels. Like the loans for cars, instead of 5 years, they're now 6, 7, 8 years long. And I remember reading something about the Great Depression. They said before it happened, you had a mortgage might have been, I think, what was it, somewhere between 6 and 10 years was like a typical mortgage.
Yeah.
And then the Great Depression happened, and they said, well, instead of kicking everybody out because they can't afford it, let's extend it to 30 years so that you can pay a tiny bit on it for 30 years.
Yeah, right.
And now all of a sudden that's the norm.
Yeah.
It's normal to pay 30 years now.
Right.
And we have the highest prices ever for housing. So I look at that, the cars, you know, I think people are just completely strapped. There's just no more money to squeeze out of us.
Yeah.
And, you know, here we are again. So I'm wondering, are we going to go back to maybe something like you have experienced back in 1929? Are we heading, you know, down that course again? Because it's like history is just a cycle. It keeps going. The same things happen. Like you said,
nobody ever pays off a house anymore.
Yeah,
just keep paying.
Yep.
When you get to a certain point, you renew the mortgage.
Yeah, refinance. Yeah, I mean, my goal in my life is to pay a house off, get a house and pay it off. Like I don't want to do that because I don't ever want to be stuck, you know, in a house and then that next.
This house was a model house and it sold for a little over $10,000.
That's what you paid for it then?
Yeah.
10,000.
And now you can't buy a house like this for less than about $260,000 from $10,000 to
that's crazy.
$260,000.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
How do people survive and do that? Because you got not only that, now with health insurance, the health insurance prices are like extremely high. It's like a second mortgage.
Yeah.
So people have a house payment and they have a healthcare payment. It's like you own two houses now, and the house is already up here to $300,000. Like you said, we saw that sign starting at $300,000. You know, for these houses over here.
It's crazy.
It is.
Doesn't make sense. But I don't know how things will get adjusted, except they don't go down. Nothing ever goes down. I mean, you'd like to say, let's start all over again.
Yeah, just like wipe the slate clean.
Wipe everything out, start all over again at a new level, and then try and keep it steady. But I don't think that's ever going to work.
Yeah, because they'll always print more money. When they print more money, the value of the dollar gets less, so things cost more. You know, it's just a never-ending cycle. But I almost feel like because the whole world right now is in the same situation that we're in, everybody's in debt up to their eyeballs. The world's, the countries of the world, everybody's in debt up to their eyeballs. They're saying now it takes $4 of new debt creation to create $1 of GDP, gross domestic product, in our country. So that can't work. You can't have $4 in debt to make one positive dollar, And that's the story of the whole world. So I almost feel like we may experience something like you've been through in 29, and maybe they will kind of start things all over again, but I don't think they'll do it the same way with a dollar that's backed by nothing.
Well, it's pretty hard to start an economy when so many things are involved. All the businesses, factories, unions. It's almost impossible to say, okay, let's start from scratch. Suppress everything so that it's...
Well, then you become a socialist nation. They say you're a socialist because you're setting the prices and there's no free market. But I tend to believe there never was a free market. The stock market is at all-time highs. There's no reason for it to be as high as it is. It's just everything's like out of whack right now, and I think it's because of the Federal Reserve's policy that they've been having, quantitative easing, printing all that money for the banks, and then keeping interest rates way down for so long. It's killing the savers. People don't want to save because they're not going to get anything back out of the bank. So, you mentioned a while back you've pretty much seen everything. If you died today or tomorrow, you'd be completely happy. Like you're ready, right? You said, I don't remember who you were telling somebody. You're like, oh, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. I'm fine. I've been here long enough. So there's no fear of death or nothing, huh? You just once you're 90-something years old, you've seen it all, been there, done that. Nothing else to do.
Yeah.
So when you got back from the war, was that when you worked at the Oak Ridge, or was that during the war, or before, during, or after the war? When you worked at Oak Ridge, after, and you worked there for a number of years.
Yeah.
What made you come to Florida?
Well, when I retired, I wanted to get away from snow, and I was tired of shoveling snow, and I thought, well, I'll retire at 61 and a half. I hit some kind of a barrier there, and I thought, 61 and a half, I'll have about 4 or 5 years more to live, and I'll kick off, and I'll be dead. And nobody will know the difference. As it turned out, instead of living to 65, here I am 97, and I never dreamed I would live this long and stay healthy, because everybody was dying. And 65 was a ripe old age, and that's why they made it the retirement age, because most people hit 65 and keeled over some kind of a heart attack or something.
And now that's kind of that's part of the problem. You know, this big problem we have with debt. That's part of it now because people are living so long. The government never expected to have to pay Social Security to 90, 80, whatever year old people, and have the rest of us pay for it. And there's an interesting statistic. You heard of the baby boomers, you know, generation? They're retiring now rapidly.
Right.
And there's less people, younger age people in the workforce to pay the bill.
Right.
And they're living longer. So it's like, this is, to me, this is like a recipe for disaster. I don't know how they're going to deal with this. Other than let everything just, you know, come crumbling down and let's start over somehow, or I don't know. You know, I talk a lot about this. It may lead to that. You know, it seems what history shows a lot of times when people, you know, get down to where they have nothing else left to lose and they've government squeezed every last dime out of them they could, they revolt. You know, and you know, people are thrown out and kings are overthrown and that kind of thing.
Oh, I guess things have changed all the time. Look at back at 1800s. You know, things were still pretty primitive.
Yeah.
It didn't get modern till about 1960 or so, 1970. And then it went, whee. Look at all the new inventions we have.
Yeah.
New things that, and is there something that still needs inventing? Not really.
I know, when you think about it, what else is left, you know?
Nothing's left. It's just refinement.
Yeah.
Make it better, make it smoother.
Yeah, like take a car, stop using gasoline, we can make them fully electric now and, you know, plug them in and that kind of thing. Less pollution in the world.
Just pretty it up.
Yeah. Like you said, fine-tune it a little bit.
I don't know of anything that we really need to invent. And a generation ago, there was still a lot to be invented. Today, nothing needs to be invented. Think of something that you would like to see invented. You can hardly think of anything.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Now, when it comes to politics, you told me you're, I think your grandfather, your dad, everybody you mentioned was like, they're all Democrats.
Yeah.
So you always vote Democrat no matter what. They always voted Democrat no matter what, or Democratic no matter what. What do you think the reason behind, say, your family choosing to be a Democrat for so long back? Was there something that they taught you when you were younger?
Well, it was the party of the people.
The People's Party.
And, yeah, the People's Party.
What was the Republican?
The working man.
And the Republican was what, for businesses and corporations?
Yeah, right.
Because that's what my dad told me when I was younger.
Yeah.
He said, you know, you always vote Democrat because they're always for the people. Yeah. But the Republicans, they're always for big business and corporations, and that's what they look out for. I didn't know any better because I was young. I was a kid.
But look at the way things are now. Republicans govern anything. The governors, the president, the senators.
Yep. And I don't think anything's going to change one way or the other. You know, no matter who's in there. Seems like, you know, they have the House and Senate and the presidency, then they switch and the Democrats have it, and then they have it, and I just don't see anything getting better. We still have the same debt problems. We still have the lower wages. We still have the same people, you know, trying to get jobs, can't find jobs. And yet they tell us unemployment's only, you know, 4.8%. But I look at the food stamp usage. In 2008, there was 24 million people on food stamps. Today, there's like 40-something, 44 million. So, okay, we had Barack Obama, we have Trump now, we had Bush before him, and even 24 million people, that's a lot of people on food stamps. And it's doubled, so if it doubled, how can they tell us unemployment's way, 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 way down? Doesn't make sense.
The difference is that we're able to feed those people and house them and still operate as an economy. So that's a big difference. So our economy has progressed so far, technically, that we can do all the things we need to do and still suffer all these high prices and losses of income. So I don't know how long it'll last, but...
Yeah, because like they say, it has to be paid for.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're not able to pull enough money in to pay for it, how do they pay for it? What do they do?
Yeah.
Are they going to cut all those welfare things, you know, all the...
Well, everything's on loan.
Right.
You just go into debt deeper, 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 and debt gets higher and higher and higher. I don't know where it's going to end.
Yeah.
Probably never will end. will start dealing in thousands instead of hundreds.
Yeah. Well, like they
For
did in Zimbabwe,
salary.
like when Zimbabwe
Yeah.
had to hyperinflate, they had, you know, I think $1 trillion note at one point or something. You know, a bank, you know, size banknote.
Yeah.
You know, wheelbarrow, people walking out with wheelbarrows full of paper cash, and it was barely buy, you know, a few
That's the
little
way it
groceries.
will be eventually. Yeah.
And I'm hoping to try to avoid that somehow, but
But it doesn't go backwards at all. Never goes backwards.
yeah, well, it keeps going. So, would you tell people as advice, knowing all this, everything you've experienced throughout your life, stay out of debt or go and get into debt?
Well, might as well get into debt because everything is based on debt. Nowadays, the average working man is in debt up to his nostrils.
So it seems like you can't even function in this system unless you're in debt.
Right.
So you might as well just go get into debt and hawk up everything, and then wherever the things fall, they fall. The cards fall, they fall.
Yeah.
'Cause I just go on. We're out of debt pretty much. The only thing we owe is that van, and then we're renting. But
Good.
I don't want to get into debt just in case. You never know how. I mean, you never know what they may try to squeeze out of you. You know, when things are tough. I don't want to be in the debt. And you know, I buy silver, like bullion, silver coins, because I have a feeling history repeats, and those things will be really expensive one day. And even though I have to sell them for paper money, I'll get a lot of paper money back when that time comes. And if I do have debt, I'll pay off the debt with the money I just got from selling the silver.
Yeah.
But you know, how long is that going to be?
How old are you now?
I'm 39.
39. You have a long way to go.
Yeah. Unless things start getting real interesting in the world soon.
Yeah.
You know, we got this problem with North Korea, Syria. They just dropped a gigantic bomb on Afghanistan, and I'm like, the markets didn't like that. When that happened, the markets went. Eh.
Yeah.
So if we find ourselves in another war here soon, we may have the next market crash coming, and I feel like it'll be 2008 all over again, except maybe worse this time because there's way more debt. Prices are way higher. Everyone's in debt up to their eyeballs now. And it's not just a housing problem like it was in 2008. It's housing, student loans, car loans, credit card debt. It's like everything. How are they going to how are they going to deal with this? You know, they almost would have to let it just ride it all off, like just let it go.
In a way, things are better because I don't see how another war could start. A thing like a world war seems to me impossible to have a world war anymore.
Why?
The world is too well knit. You know, it's how can Germany attack England or England attack France?
Yeah, well, we're all partners now.
Yeah, we're all partners.
But some of us aren't. You know, Russia, China, some other countries, they're not.
Yeah. But still, they're not going to do anything because it's not in their interest to acquire more land, more physical resources.
But what if you? What if the secret was that was our idea? We want to still do that.
Yeah.
So we're the ones going out and trying that, and they're saying, "Hey, we don't want to do that. Stop."
Yeah, I don't think we'll do that.
You don't think so? I would hope not,
Yeah,
because I think that would be disastrous for us all.
no, I don't think so either.
All right. Well, that.
Strange world.
Yeah.
How things have changed. Wow.
And then it seems rapidly nowadays. Everything's
Yeah.
just, you know, because we have the internet and computers. Everything is just fast, 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 fast. Each day seems to go by faster too.
But everything is for the better because everything is pretty much staying the same. Even though things progress and new inventions come out every day and all,
Yeah.
it's still pretty much the same as it was yesterday.
Yep.
Politics stays the same. You're going to have Republicans one term and
Yep.
Democrats
And then
another
switch.
term.